Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to Point People's first ever panel discussion and conversation about race and diversity in the dance world. My name is Michalina Ritchell, and I'm the digital marketing manager for Pointe People. And today I'm super excited to have with me 4 incredible Black professional dancers from across the country. We are going to be continuing the conversation that the whole world is having right now about race and equality, and especially how that relates to being Black in the dance world. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our dancers.
My name is Amanda Smith. I'm from Dance Theater of Harlem. This is going into my 4th season. I am originally from Orange County, California. So I graduated from high school when I was 17, and I left school to go to college in New York, actually, in White Plains, New York. I went to SUNY Purchase, and I studied there for 4 years. I got my BFA. From there, I went to Charlotte Ballet. I was in the second company first, and this was when it was North Carolina Dance Theater before it changed to Charlotte Ballet. And I got hired to the first company, and I was there for about 4 years. Yeah, 4 years. And then I left Charlotte Ballet because it just wasn't giving me what I needed anymore. And I moved back to New York with no job and just freelanced for about a year. And I was always like, Dance Theater of Harlem is my dream, you know? So I auditioned for Dance Theater of Harlem. And in 2017, I was hired by Virginia Johnson, and I've been with them ever since. In between that, you know, that Dance Theater of Harlem and the freelancing time, I did other things. I did a national or international campaign for Gap Fit. I did a lot of things with the Black Iris Project, with the choreographer William Isaac, who danced for Complexions way back when. So I was doing a lot of small projects, which was awesome to. I think it's important to have like a freelancing time in your life just so you know what it's like to really like hustle, because it's really, I think it builds character. It definitely built a lot of character. But yes, now I'm with Dance Theater of Harlem, and it's been wonderful, and I love dancing with Derek Brockington, who is here today.
My name's Ricardo Dyer. I graduated from high school and I went to Butler University, got my BFA in dance, was there for 4 years. After that, I danced for a small contemporary company in Chicago called Elements Contemporary Ballet. That was for like a couple months. They were more project-based. Moved back to New York, had no job, the same thing, just figuring it out, like feel out the audition scene. Getting this close to many, many auditions. And, I've even been told I was too tall before, which I never thought I would hear that. I went through that whole circuit. You're right, it does build character. It does make you stronger. It does make you fight harder. And I feel like I had to work my way up. And I feel like not having a job for so long, I had to build myself up again. So I danced for Charlottesville Ballet. It's in Virginia. And it was just a way for me to, start performing again and getting on stage and just getting in shape. And from there, I moved on to Ballet Memphis for 2 seasons. So I would say when my career started to like really have some momentum to it. And after that, I was ready to like move on, see what else is out there, and ended up here in Smuin. I actually auditioned for Smuin like mid-July, found out I got the job like 2 days later, and then moved 2 weeks later to San Francisco. Like I made the decision to go. And so I've been here, and it's been a great season so far. It's kind of sad I didn't get to do the second half of the season, so I can't really say I'm a full Smuin dancer yet because I didn't get through the full thing yet. But yeah, it's been great.
Hi everyone, my name is Eileen Frazer. I'm originally from Panama, so non-US citizen over here. I actually grew up dancing for a really small studio. It was mostly like a competition-based studio, so not really a professional school at all. After I graduated, I was about 18, and my teacher worked for the Ballet Nacional de Panama, which is the professional company in Panama. We only have one, so. After I graduated, she asked me to start taking classes with them every morning. So that's how basically I started. I took classes from January all the way through September, and then they offered me my first contract. I stayed with them for 4 years. We mostly do a lot of classical works, and at that point, I was ready to do more, to learn more, and to just be in a different environment. The easiest way for me as an international student or person, I should say, because I wasn't a student yet, for me to leave and be able to work afterwards in the US was to go to college. We get your 4-year program, and then you get a year in which you do a professional practice. So that would give me the opportunity to actually work in a company, and then, you know, if they like me, I can get a visa potentially and be able to work in a dance company in the US. So after a lot of auditioning and like searching, I decided to go to Butler University. I got my Bachelor of Arts in Dance Pedagogy. After I graduated, I did my professional practice as an apprentice with Ballet Memphis for a year, and then they offered me a company contract, and I've been with them for 5 seasons after that. So this would be my 6th season with the company.
So my name is Derek Brockington. I am from Holland, Michigan. I trained at Grand Rapids Ballet, which is 30 minutes from Holland, where I met you, Nicolina. And then I went to Interlochen Arts Academy, where I graduated. And then I went and was a trainee at Grand Rapids Ballet. After a year there under Patricia Barker, which was a great and harrowing experience, I was able to join Cincinnati Ballet 2, which I did for 2 years, which was really great. I really loved Cincinnati. I loved the environment there. And then I auditioned for DTH. I went to IABD, which was the second men's audition that they had ever. And that was in LA, which was really great. And I met Virginia. And then she had me come and audition again in New York, which was kind of crazy, because I was like, you're going to make me audition again after I went through all of that? And she did. And then that audition was probably like 5 hours. It was very long, and had multiple steps, and I spent most of the day there. Then a few weeks later, I got the call, and she said that I got accepted, which blew my mind, and it was something that I could not even imagine. But I've been with them for 2 years, and so next year will be my 3rd season.
For me, I think, so I was on dance team in high school. I did a lot of like competition dance in the beginning of my early years. But I noticed that I was definitely the token Black girl in a sea of just blonde hair, blue-eyed girls. I was always put in the middle for everything, but not, it didn't feel like it was because of my talent. It always just felt like, here's a token Black girl, let's put her in the center, in the middle, especially when it came to hip hop. And they just always assumed that I was good at hip hop. And like, I'm okay, I have rhythm, but like, that was never my thing. Like, it was never my thing. So that, I feel like that was one of the biggest moments when it came to my dance life. I was always like, why do I always have to do a hip hop solo? Like, that was my thing. Like, always had to do like the Harlem Shake while everyone ducked down and looked at me. And it was just always the same thing for like 4 years straight. It was always that. So that was something, and I never spoke up about it because I kind of just felt, well, this is what it is, and that was the time before I felt, found my voice or anything like that. But it was something very noticeable to me, and it was just always the same. It was always like, okay, so Amanda's gonna do the hip hop solo, and she's gonna be in the middle, and everyone else is gonna watch her do it. And then they also like never understood that like there was more like dance companies than Alvin Ailey. So, I feel like we all experienced that. Like, it was just always like, oh, you're so good, you should dance for Alvin Ailey. And it's like, well, there's other ballet companies that I actually want to dance for, like Dance Theater of Harlem. And so that was one of the, I think, the main things that I experienced growing up.
I actually had a really diverse high school. I went to performing arts high school. The best girl in the class was Black. So for me, seeing that was like, wow, like that's Felicia, Felicia, Eileen, the top girl was Black, and that was like a huge thing. And I think for me, who like, even though she was a girl, for me being fresh into the whole thing, I was just like, wow, okay, I do see that Black people can be at the top in the class and they can be the best. It wasn't until college, being one of 4 Black students in like a dance department of maybe like 120, I think that's when I started to realize, because of course things are more professional, you know, when it comes to college programs than in high school. And I think for me, that was when I was like, oh, okay, this is, you know, certain teachers don't give you the same attention. And I think that comes from just not knowing how to approach your body and your, you know, the way you know, it's just like the way you are. And I feel like I'm so thankful for Derek Reed. We had a Black professor at Butler. Like, my experience would have been completely different had we not had a person of color in the front of the room. I just could tell like the way he would correct me, it was different than the rest of the teachers. I think he really understood like my struggles and, you know, what my strengths and my weaknesses. And I could just tell the difference from being that young. You could just hear what they're saying. And I think it's crazy that I had that then and I don't have it now in the professional world, because there's just so much more that you hope to find in artistry and everything, you know, being in the professional world. And I feel like it's hard when you don't have someone who kind of gets your approach of dance, and they're just, they want to help you, but they don't know how to. And I feel like it just makes you feel like you're walking on eggshells. Like you always feel like, well, am I doing the job right? Or like,
Because the obvious type of like typecasting of like, I would always get Arabian and always be this character who might not be the hero, or like I've only been Rothbard in things, or it's only been Rat King, and it's things like where it's like that isn't necessarily what my character could be, you know? The other thing is, when I was in high school, was I remember looking around and not seeing anybody who looked like me, who I could look up to, and who's actually a good, strong, not just modern dancers, but like a ballet dancer. And that's why I love Eric Underwood, because I remember being in high school and being like, wow, like he's someone who I could completely look up to, who danced at Dance City of Harlem, and then also went on to ABT, and now has gone on beyond. That experience for me was a little bit much, because I just couldn't. I was like, how am I supposed to succeed in this if there's no one out there who like actually looks like me and is doing it? And through Dance City of Harlem, I was able to see a lot more people who were similar to who I was, doing what I wanted to do.
I think my experience will probably be different than most people, just because of where I come from. You know, in Panama, everyone looks different. Like literally, everyone looks different. So like from growing up in the school where I went to, I mean, yes, I was the only Black person in my class, but not in the school. Like I wasn't the only person of color, you know? So I never grew up thinking that I was different in a bad way. It was just nice to stand out, because it was easier for people to recognize me in a core. That's how I always thought of it, or I thought about it. So in speaking about like having role models, you know, our system is mostly like the Cuban ballet. So you see people from different hues and like different cultures, and everyone just working together. So for me, that's what I grew up looking at and admiring, you know, coming here and kind of noticing the difference, really, like Ricky was saying, like when I went to Butler, and it's like, okay, so there's not a lot of people that look different. And then after that, it's like, okay, coming to a company, you kind of feel the same. I said, I grew up just seeing everyone look different. So for me, that's just, it was a reality in Panama until I came to the US.
It's so funny because I think I had like the opposite effect happen to me. Like once I went to school, then that's where I like met, like I was like, oh my God, there's more people that look like me. I grew up in Orange County, so like, you know, I was always like, we were the only Black family like that I knew of. Like there were a few others that I didn't really know them. But going to college, going to SUNY Purchase, I guess maybe because it was a performing arts college, I mean, I got to see everybody from all over. So that was what I was like, oh my gosh, the upperclassmen. I remember seeing people like Samantha Figgins and Janelle Figgins and Shalvar, people like that. I was able to look up to them at school once I went to college. So it was really nice to see them. I think that was like my first time experiencing looking up to someone that was of my same skin tone. When I was at home, I think it was, I just never saw anybody, so I didn't know, except the one time I saw Dance Theater of Harlem when they came to perform near my home when I was like 9. And I was like, oh, really? Like, this is possible? Like, you know, so that was what sparked the whole like, oh, wait, so there's really no one around here that looks like me. But I did have a mentor that always, she was, you know, she's also Black. And I'm so thankful for her, Cheris Moses. She always was like, just keep going, you know, like no matter what happens, you just have to keep going, and you're gonna have to go harder than others. You're gonna have to push harder than some other people. So I'm very thankful for her. Yeah, I think going to college, that's when I was like, oh, I actually have people I can look up to, you know. And there was always like my mom, I think, introduced me to Lauren Anderson, or somehow I found out about Lauren Anderson when I was younger. But she wasn't someone that was reachable. Like, I just felt like it was like, you know, so far away from me. I mean, I knew it was possible, but it was very hard for me to see just because of where I was.
Because at a young age, I went to the summer camp for dance, and I had a modern teacher who's Black. And even though we were doing modern, he would bring me to the front room, and I was like the only Black kid that entire summer probably. And I could tell the difference that it made in my own character building, because I was like, okay, at the time I was like, oh, he's just picking on me, he doesn't like me. But as I got older, I was like, okay, these are corrections, he's trying to help me, he was really caring about what was happening. And then that was one of the first times where I was like, okay, someone is looking at me, actually seeing me, and wanting more, and caring about what my training was. And I appreciated that, and I could feel that coming from him. And I'm very thankful now, because while I was at Interlochen, while I was at Greenwich Ballet, and even while I was at Cincinnati, I didn't have a lot of people of color who I could look at and be like, wow, I want to be like that. There wasn't, not that there wasn't any, it just wasn't what I was looking for. And I feel like now I kind of have that a little bit, where I can have people where I see, and I'm like, wow, like that's something that I can look at and want to grow towards. And that's kind of where I found. But I agree with what you were saying about having that at a young age really helped my development in my own dancing and in my career as a person.
Yeah, going off of what Derek was saying, I think when I had a mentor or a teacher who was Black at like the age of 10, and it was so essential to see her career, because she would show videos of herself, and then also hear her corrections in our classes. And me being the only Black girl, and the way she would correct me was different than the way she would correct. I wouldn't say different, but it was just, there was a deeper understanding, you know. And she knew what my career was going to be like, or, you know, the things I was going to face. So she prepped me for that. And I think that was really important going into the professional world and going into the audition world, because that's a whole another ball game, is the audition world. I think like she really just kind of, like prepped me for what is to come, and kind of made me just aware of the things I needed to be aware of with my own body, with my technique, and just going into a room and owning it the way Mr. Mitchell used to say. And yeah, it's very important to have those people to look up to in the front of the room. It's vital.
People need to be intentional about what they're doing, and transparent too. It's like, you're not just looking for a Black person, you're looking for someone who has been working with dancers and, you know, really knows their craft. And you have to just celebrate that. You know, there are so many people that have had successful careers. Then just reach out and be like, hey, do you want to be a part of my company? Do you want to work with me? Do you want to come for a couple of months and see if you like working with my dancers, if you like the environment here? You know, I think we have to be inviting to other people, and we're not right now. Yeah. We just kind of stay within our niche and like our clique, but then we never actually branch out or even like ask your dancers. Like we sometimes have more connections too, you know. I feel like we just really have to be intentional about it and inviting. I feel like that's where the difference happens. You know, be open to actually do something different, not just think it, but do it.
First, it starts with changing the standard. It's hard because I think we are constantly comparing ourselves to what it used to be, and I think we just need to completely break down like this whole standard of what used to be, what you're supposed to look like. And I think we've started to do that for sure, but I just think we need to continue to do that. Like directors need to make sure they have a wide variety of dancers in their company, and they just need to make it a point to have an equal amount of race in their company. I think it should be intentional rather than just like, oh, I couldn't find any. Like, no, look, let's keep looking. Because I'm sure there's Black dancers out there that are talented, that are looking for work. It also starts with the fact that we don't have many Black artistic directors. So it's obviously going to be harder to hire more Black people on your staff, because I feel like it all comes down to just not knowing how to have a connection. I think sometimes white people feel like they don't know how to connect with Black people, or we don't have much in common. So I don't imagine that we would work well together. It's like, that's not the case though, because like, you know, we're capable of doing it. I just feel like you're missing out. You're missing out on more by not hiring them than like you could just deal with finding a connection between the two. I feel like it's possible, you know, like you can find a way to work together.
Going off what Eileen was saying, because I really liked how you were saying intentional. And I think it's important for artistic directors and people who are hiring to intentionally go out and look for these dancers of color, but also starting in the school, because that is where I feel like a lot of people run into the issue. They're like, well, a lot of Black dancers aren't trained very well. That's because they don't get into the schools. That's because they don't have the same privileges. And it starts when you're training. And I think that having initiatives to have kids into any program, because I mean, even SIB has their own diversity initiative, which I think is important, is the right step, but I don't think that has spread into enough companies to have that deep of an aspect of what they include in their repertoire of who they hire. And I think that is where the intention will start, is if you start a little early on, then you can actually find more dancers of a higher caliber of color.
I will definitely say that with my first job at North Carolina Dance Theater and in Charlotte Ballet, I was always typecasted, like for almost everything. Like I never felt like I got the opportunity. That's why I think, like Derek was saying, it starts in our schools. Equal opportunity for everyone. There's always the white privilege. They always get that first chance to get this and da 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 da. But then, we're left in the background. Like, oh, you're just gonna have this, whatever's left, So yeah, equal opportunity. So I never felt like I had the chance to get the roles that I thought I deserved, that I thought I was working really, really hard for. Such as like, I think after my first year in the first company, I felt like I was doing really well. I felt like it. And that's another thing, like they don't really tell you. They're kind of just like, you're doing great. Like, oh my gosh, I love your hair. Like I had to take my hair out because they liked my hair. My artistic director asked me in the middle of a tech rehearsal for Peter Pan. And I was a pirate, and stopped the whole tech rehearsal, paused the music, everything, and was like, Amanda, can you please take down your hair? And my hair was in a high bun. Like I thought like, no, he wanted my hair out and big because that was the thing. And so, I mean, I feel like from then on, it was just always like Arabian. It was always the contemporary ballet works. It was always, it was always along those lines. And it was very frustrating for me because I felt like I was working really, really hard and I was never getting what I felt like I could do. So that was part of the reasons why I left, because I just felt like I was just staying the same because they weren't giving me a chance to push forward and be the Sugar Plum or Snow Queen or, you know, whatever it was at the time, Key Tree. I just never felt like I was going to be able to get there.
Like for me, you know, I never felt like I was typecasted, but like once I start having conversations with people, I'm like, right, yeah, you know, because I can agree with you all. But it was mostly, you know, I was in the company in Panama for 4 years. And I did a lot of works and I danced a lot, but I never actually got to be the principal part. I would always be like, you know, the second one. And it just took someone who is of color, who is Cuban actually, and he worked with me a lot. He actually gave me all of my first principal roles when he went to choreograph for the company. So it was like everyone else could see something, but he actually took the chance on me and like, you know, gave me those roles to actually show that, you know, she is working hard and she does deserve it and she can actually perform it. You know, and it sounds weird to me saying it out loud, but like not getting those roles when I knew I was capable of doing it messed up my health and like my mental health. Because, you know, there came a point where when I did get that chance, I was like nervous all the time because I was like, am I actually capable of doing this? You know, so I second guessed my talent because I wasn't given certain opportunities when I knew I could do them. I think it also comes with transparency. Like here, where I'm at right now at Ballet Memphis, you know, I do get roles, but then I ask myself sometimes, like, am I getting this role because I deserve it, because I'm good enough to do it, or am I getting it because they need
a black girl to do it?
Exactly, like a black principal or a black dancer doing this role. So, you know, and I know this stems from, you know, past experiences that I have from Panama, and they just like, you know, keep piling up. But it's like, am I ever going to be like 100% sure that I am getting stuff because I'm working hard and I deserve it, or is it because they needed me? I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, because you do dance at Ballet Memphis and you used to, what your experience has been like, because I know that Ballet Memphis has a very big brand of being a diverse company and having a lot of dancers of color. And I wondered how you still felt being in that company, if that's what they're saying. So hearing you say that, I just wondered, could you comment any more on that?
I feel like it's very performative in a way. They feel like it's like, oh, we have this grant, we have to hire all these black dancers. Memphis is an extremely black city, so we have to appeal to all these black people. But it just felt very, I'm doing this because I've been told to do this, because I've been given all this money to do this. And I don't think I was ever typecast, but another weird thing there was that there was never allowed to be two principal couples that were black. It always had to be either a white or black, white, but never black and black. And it was like, what are you avoiding by doing that? Because I'm pretty sure two black people in this company could perform those principal roles and look amazing, you know. And I just never really understood what she was getting out of that. But it did feel a bit performative. It doesn't feel like she really had a connection with her black dancers. She just was doing the work. But I do think it was definitely a huge opportunity for us. You know, I definitely feel more celebrated there than I do here in a way, and because I am the only black person in this company, and it's completely different when you're, you know, in a company. You look around the room and it's different. I'm sure you can imagine.
Yeah. I think they were trying to do the right thing. You know, they had the grant to hire black dancers, and you know, they bring in people with different voices from different backgrounds. Like they try to have black choreographers, you know, music from Memphis that's like black music essentially. You know, it is very important for them to be one of the most diverse companies and to have a 50% or more dancers of color in the company. But I think where some people miss the mark is just, do we understand what actually happens when you do have a company that looks like that? Right? There's like the issues underneath that are not dealt with. So basically hiring black dancers, you just don't do it just to do it. Like, what are the reasons? And I feel like sometimes that's where we miss the mark. And like, you know, are we going to talk about the tights situation? Are we going to wear pink tights? Are we going to be allowed to wear brown tights? You know, I think the conversation goes so much more than just, well, we have the dancers. And I don't think that this is the only company that misses that mark. I think it's just we as people just try to put a Band-Aid on things and not actually address the issues that are causing the fact that we don't have diversity in company. I've stayed with this company for this long because I do believe that we can actually make a difference, but it's by changing direction. You can't just keep doing things the way that they have been done for the past 30 years and then just change something in a year and expect your company to be completely different diversity-wise in the next 10 years. Like, I cannot tell you how many phone calls I've been in the past 2 weeks, but it's good because, you know, everyone's listening, everyone's open to opinions, to change, and I mean, I'm still here, you know, so I'm still gonna try and help the company do their part and fulfill their part.
So it's so funny because when I was at Charlotte, my director did ask me kind of nonchalantly if I wanted to wear brown tights or pink tights. And at the time, now thinking back, I'm like, why didn't I say brown tights? But I said pink tights because I felt nervous. I felt like I would stand out too much and I'd be the only one. And so I was uncomfortable saying yes. So I just said, no, I'm okay with pink tights and pink shoes, even though I really do think sometimes it really does cut off our lines completely. And looking back at old photos of myself in pink tights, I'm like, oh, okay, I did that for a long time. I think it starts in schools. I think that dancers of color should have the option to wear brown tights and brown shoes because it extends your line and you just feel better when you're dancing in it, when your lines look good, you know? So that's why I appreciate Dance Theater of Harlem so much. I mean, they are the originators of the dyeing of the tights and the pointe shoes. Being able to have your own paint that matches your specific skin tone and the tights is just like heavenly. And I think all of us should have that opportunity to wear those tights, and it shouldn't be forced to have a black leotard and pink tights, pink shoes, you know, especially when you're young and seeing yourself in pink tights, it's very strange. So I think it is very important to have the option to wear the brown tights and the brown shoes for all.
I agree with Amanda, like 100%, you know, I'm 30. So when I was growing up, like the only tights that were like flesh color were the capicios that were like orange. So
Like
they were awful. But like when I was growing up, I hated wearing tights. So I would go to school and wear my leotard and nothing else. Just bare legs, because I just didn't like wearing tights, and they let me, because it wasn't like a professional ballet studio, but we still had like ballet class 4 times a week, like everything, but I just wouldn't wear tights. I didn't like them. I mean, I don't think I was smart enough to know that it was because I didn't like myself in them, but like I just didn't like wearing the tights at all. So, you know, after that, growing up and like continuing, all the performances were in pink tights, all of them. So, you know, you get used to that. And like Amanda was saying, actually I had the option to wear brown when I did Sugar Plum with Ricky. Well, he got injured, but when I was going to do Sugar Plum with Ricky at Butler, because Ms. Jarvis asked me, she was like, you're going to wear brown. And I was like, I don't know. Like, I've never have had that option before. So like, I don't know. Like, is that even a thing? And like, you have, like, I come from Panama, so we don't see that at all. You do what the classical people do and you just wear your pink tights, you know? So I was like, I don't know. So I said pink, you know, and like I wore pink. And here, I think last year was the first time that I've worn brown tights for a professional company and for a classical ballet. Like I did sugar plum and I wore my brown tights. And I cannot tell you how different that feels. Like I cannot explain it. It just felt liberating. Every girl should have that option to feel free when they're 3, 4, 5, 6 until you're professional. I think you should be given that option. Absolutely.
Having a conversation with younger dancers about what it means and why. Eileen, like you said, I didn't even know why I didn't like to wear them, but I just didn't like seeing myself in them. And that's why a conversation would be important. And I love that now in the past week, all of these point shoe companies and dancewear companies are like, oh my God, we're going to make brown shoes and brown tights, which is so amazing. But honestly, it's like, why did it take you so long? Why did it take people to protest and burn these cities to the ground for you to change the dye of your point shoes? Like, I just don't understand that. So while I am so excited because I feel like there is this great just joy in shoes and tights of color now, where it's like, okay, great, we can celebrate this. It just took so long, and it was only achieved under these excruciating circumstances.
I don't think I knew my shoes were supposed to be my color until like way later. Maybe I was like 19. And the only reason I realized like, oh, your shoes are supposed to be brown is because we did Vivaldi. We did a ballet and it was brown tights. Like everyone wore brown tights and everyone wore brown shoes. And that was the first time I realized like, oh, like that's actually what I should be wearing all the time. That's what I should be wearing all the time. And it's just like, why didn't anyone like ever say that to me? Like you said, like, why didn't anyone ever tell me like, you got to change the color of your shoes? You know, I mean, it's obviously a hard conversation to have. And obviously, you know, we're afraid of having those hard conversations sometimes.
It's very important for people to see things that they're not used to. I think Dance Theater of Harlem in general, I feel like they've always been the company to force people to reconsider their stereotypes. And I think that with Dance Theater of Harlem, we've always made what, you know, the stereotype of what people think Black people are, or whatever. We've changed their mindset. And I think that Dance Theater of Harlem does a good job of bringing royalty, like royal Black and brown queens and kings onto the stage. And it's a different, you know, view than what people are used to. People are used to seeing modern dance, you know, they think modern dance or hip hop dancing or blah, 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 blah. But when you see that brown skin in the point shoe and the tutu and all of that, it's just something magical, you know? And I think it's really important to do that with every single ballet. You know, not only Giselle, but Don Q, Swan Lake, and all of the different classical ballets. I think it's so important for people to see.
A double black swan.
What?
Be a double black swan.
A double black swan. I've always thought that would be
Absolutely.
absolutely so fierce. But I think it's just really important because, again, like people are still set on their stereotypes, and it's it's just important to see a different version of these ballets with Black kings and queens. And it's good for young people to see it as well. Girls and boys of color to see like, oh my goodness, like I can be that royal. I can look like that, you know, and present the ballet in the same way, but in a different light. You know, it's just, I think it's very, very essential to open people's eyes to what else is out there, because people get very stuck in their ways and what they're used to, and they like comfortable. They're like, oh, this is different, I don't like it. But it's like, no, you gotta see some change. You gotta see something different in order for anything to move forward. So I think it's very important. And doing the quarantine Creole Giselle was like so fun, because that's also one of my dream roles, is to be Giselle, but in our version, the Creole Giselle. And it was very fun to see what they did and how they put us all together, and just to see the beauty of, you know, all the beautiful Black dancers in our company. So yeah.
I felt accepted. I felt like I stood out for like the wrong reasons sometimes. Like I stood out for being like the black kid who could also do what everyone else was doing. And it's like I didn't expect for myself to not succeed. I don't know. I definitely felt accepted. I think for me it's hard. I was very desensitized to the whole thing because I just loved dance that much, and I was so interested in, you know, furthering my career and training really hard while I was there. I don't think I ever thought like, what if anyone wanted to exclude me or make me feel I was still gonna, you know, do what I had to do. It's hard for me because that's just the person I am. I can ignore and I can desensitize if it's, you know, getting in the way of doing something that's gonna make me happy. But I think it's important, you know, now to like speak up and say something. And I think I'm working on that more. But I don't think I ever felt like not accepted. Definitely in looking back, I didn't realize it at the time, but like you said, Derek Reed, he definitely helped have that feeling, you know, make that make it more of a comfortable experience.
I agree with Ricky. I feel like I was accepted in every way from everyone. Like I never felt anything from any teacher in particular. Nothing like racially wise. Like, you know, like the thing is like ballet is so subjective. You never know what the reason is for someone not to like you. And like, you know, coming from Panama, I've never felt like excluded because of my skin color. So I didn't know if that was a reason for a teacher not to like me. Sounds weird, but it seems like this is a completely different world from what I grew up in, you know? But Butler was just, for me, it was a really good experience. I think, you know, I got to do a lot that I never thought that I was going to do. And it kind of, being a Butler kind of built me back up. It built back my confidence. It just was like a fresh start, a restart to everything that I had experienced before. It was really great being there. I mean, I love working with all the teachers. I knew two of them previously before even going to Butler. So I felt like I already had some sort of connection, people that had actually been in Panama. So for me, it was like, you know, I still have someone from my culture that's there and that's going to push me because they know me and like they're not going to let me just lag behind. So, you know, for me, it was a very positive experience.
So growing up, it is very white. I was one of the only black kids in my high school, Sauk High School, and I'm sure I was one of 5 black kids who went to Grand Rapids Ballet when I was in school. And for me, kind of like with Eileen, I always felt that because I was black, I stood out, and I was able to like be that person who's a little bit different. And because I also have a white mom, and this place where I grew up, I didn't have a good view of myself as a black male. I had a very different self view, and so I always thought of myself being black. It's like, oh, I'm special, I'm different. I am looked at because I'm different, and I didn't realize until later a lot of those situations I was looked at as different because I was black, not because of derogatory themes of that nature. And so I don't know, I had a pretty decent time, but there were moments where I was like, wow, is it possible for me to do this, seeing that no one around me is doing what I'm doing and no one who looks like me is in the immediate vicinity or in the immediate future of where I'm going. So that was where I kind of got stuck a few times in my own mind, where I was like, is this possible? But I did have a very good support system with my family, and at Grand Rapids Ballet, I had a very good people who I didn't think about it, but they were pushing me forward. And so yeah, it was a pretty good experience, but definitely a lack of people who I could look up to in that aspect. And also, I did not know how to dye my shoes, and I actually had a person help me, and I did it very, very poorly. And that was something I really wish that I had known more about, because I walked around with, I'm sure you remember me as a trainee at Grand Rapids Ballet, with just like half-dyed shoes. So that's one thing that I wish that I had known more about. My mother, first of all, she's a single mom, and she is so supportive of me, and she and my other 3 siblings, like, she pushes us, and like she's willing to give us anything to I don't know, succeed. And even though she was a white mother raising for children of color, because we're all adopted. I think that she was pushing us, but at the same time, she did not know certain aspects of who I was, just because she said, she's like, I'm not able to teach you. So she would always like really try and find a person who was able to help me become myself. So that was really nice. And also my grandmother, who passed away 2 weeks ago, which has been really hard, because she was really like, we lived with her for a while, but she was also just someone who would push me, and I would come to her with all of my issues and all of my casting trials and all of that. So I had a really nice home support group that, even though they knew that they couldn't necessarily help me with some things, of like just character development, because they were different in skin tone than me, they were definitely supportive in helping me find people who looked at me to get that support from.
In the beginning, I think when you're forced to be in a situation with a lot of white people and you're the only Black person, it's sometimes hard to focus on Black advancement rather than white approval. You just are like, okay, well, they like me and I'm doing good, so like I'm set, like I'm in there. And I think once I was able to let that go, once I was okay with being like the loud, ratchet, like Black one in the room, and not all Black people are like that. And I think once I was just okay with like, just, okay, yeah, I'm gonna be the Black one in the room, like I'm gonna be tongue popping, I'm gonna be, like once I could just let that all go, I was like, all right, yeah, like I feel like I just am so much more comfortable and like confident, and like I can just dance myself. It just felt so much better, and I felt like it made me stronger, and it felt I had a more had a clearer path of what I wanted to do with this career and where I saw myself.
So, I think for me, I've jumped from not wanting to do anything with the professional world after I'm done with dancing, to actually feeling that I need to be involved in how this art form is going to actually be portrayed and worked in the next 20 years. I was always one of those people who was very shy speaking, voicing opinions. Like, I did have a voice, I just never actually used it. I think once I came to the US, and I've been here for 10 years now, it has helped me understand how the world works, and like I can't just stay in the bubble of what I know, but actually having to learn another culture and learn how we are viewed as Latin people and as Black people within a different country. When I went to Ballet Memphis, they started pushing me a lot to like be in panels and like, have discussions about certain things. And at first I was like, why do they always pick me? Like, I don't like this. I don't like speaking in public. I don't feel comfortable speaking in public. But they would all tell me afterwards, you speak well, like people kind of relate to you, and, you need to start pushing yourself to do this more. And I mean, after like 3 years, I became the ballet rep last year with the company. And then that has also pushed me to be more vocal. And, now figuring out, like, I actually want to represent the Latin community and the Black community, and like show everyone that you can be proudly both in the dance world, and kind of, keep pushing and keep trying to make this better. Like, I want people coming into this art form to not go through the things that we've gone through. Like, I actually want it to change. And the only way that I can do that is by being vocal, being an ally, even though I'm not technically African American, but I'm still Black. I think I now want to possibly be in like a directive position or an executive position, as opposed to just being in the background and having other people do the work for me. So I think I have changed a lot in the past 10 years. And, I'm grateful for every opportunity that I had, every failure that I've had, because it has brought me to where I am now, and has kind of given me like a light to move forward in my voice and in my power.
We can do it too.
I would love to tell each artistic director to, when they're in auditions, ask themselves while they're there, what am I looking for when I look and I see these dancers who might be two different skin tones? Like, how far do I extend my questions into why I want to hire them? Because I don't think the question is like why people like see and they're like, oh, like they're Black, and they kind of like have their own opinions. And I would love for them to just in that moment take another second to be like, why? And ask more questions, why? Of like what goes into their hiring, why they might be in the audition room and make a certain choice, especially with dancers of color, and just go on beyond the first instinct that they have. Because it is easy in auditions to just like take a glance and make your decision based off that. And I would love for them to like take more time in there in the way that they're thinking about how they're hiring their dancers.
Going off of what Derek said, I think it's important for all artistic directors to give each and every one of us a chance. I mean, at the end of the day, it just comes down to giving us a fair chance, a fair opportunity to do everything like everyone else, and don't close off so quickly. Don't go off to your first opinion. Give us a chance and keep your conversation open. I think it's another thing. Talk to us, communicate with us, develop a relationship with each and every one of your Black dancers, because that's how we're going to, I think, slowly but surely change things, is to continue the communication between the dancer and the director.
And I agree with what Amanda was saying about having a relationship with your dancers. I think a lot of artistic directors just assume that they're doing the right thing, but if you're not having those conversations with the people that work with you or work for you, then are you actually doing the right thing? Is this the actual way that you should do this? And, I think that's important, just to keep having those conversations, but then also like act upon what is happening. Like, the environment that you're seeing, seek that change and not just stay in a conversation.
And for the young aspiring dancers, just keep pushing. I know it's cliche, super cliche, but it's a real thing. And if you love what you do, you have to keep going. And all of the experiences that I have had have made me stronger and have made me just a little more aware. It has helped build me as a person and as an artist today. I think now I'm beginning to find more of my voice. I thought I found my voice in college, but now I'm like, wait a minute, there's more to me than I thought, and I think that's a part of our journey as artists and as people, and just always listen to your gut. We like to be like, oh, well, nah, but no, it's actually somebody upstairs being like, hey, I think you should, whatever it may be, but listen to that little voice that's telling you no or yes, or if you have a weird feeling about something, you're probably right about that feeling. And just keep the light inside, don't let anybody darken your light bulb, because that's what makes you you. So keep going, and we're gonna make it through. Change is a coming.
The young ones, don't be afraid to speak up. If you, like you said, if you feel like something isn't right, it probably isn't right. If you feel like they shouldn't have asked me to cut my hair in that way or something, like, that you should say something. And I know it's hard when you feel like you're young, but it's gonna add to the change.
Like Amanda was saying, just push. Like, you'll get there. And like, if you need help, if you need support, there's so many of us out here, send a message. Everyone has Instagram. We have Facebook. Like, if you need that support, I'm sure that most people would be happy to mentor you or help you. And it's like, we are here to be a support system for you. So just use it. Use Instagram and Facebook and that technology to help you, and not just like watch other people, like, and compare yourself to them and be like, yeah, I'm not good enough. No, like, go beyond that and actually use the support system that you have, because we are here to support you.